Quiet, numbskull. I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Baldini, and today we have day 37 of the Afghan hostage. This is a cycle of mayhem. We have 9 months of mayhem from Biden. I want to start off by introducing A.J. Hayes, the guy right there, right next to me. That's A.J. Hayes. I also want to remind you, like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get the message out. We are fighting back. We are standing up. We are fighting for you. And ladies and gentlemen, the commentator of Common Sense, Mr. A.J. Hayes.
Good evening, Jim, and thanks for having me on the show. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And just like Jim had said, like and subscribe, share the message as here on the Cycle of Mayhem. As I say every week, our job, our mission here is to get rid of the smoke and mirrors, lift up the curtain, and show you what's really going on, or at least point you in a direction to show you what's going on in plain sight. That's why the show is called Cycle of Mayhem in Plain Sight. A lot of these, crazy things, whether it's hitting you in the wallet, whether it's hitting you just morally or in your decision making for who to vote for or direction to go on how to put some kind of stop to this mayhem going on. We're doing the homework for you, and we're going to put it out in front of you, present it to you, and hopefully that will give you a great understanding on what's going on and exactly what needs to be done to start chipping away to put this to a stop.
Yeah, I know. AJ, we have this this policy here that we speak the truth and we fight for you. So I think that that's another reason for you to spread the word about us and get the message out, because this is the real deal here, the Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. So, Mr. AJ Hayes, what do you have on the plate tonight for us to chow down on?
Okay. We have a lot of material, folks, here for Cycle of Mayhem. I mean, it's pages and pages. Just to give you a little behind-the-scenes peek, this is just not when we're live broadcasting like tonight. Prior to it, we're constantly documenting things, writing notes, and then we prepare the material for the show. And there's a lot of it. There's still a lot to come. But all of a sudden, it was like we needed to kind of just get right into the nitty-gritty of this here. And that's why tonight's title of the show is Biden 9 Months of Mayhem. The real reality and realization has just blown apart. I mean, it's just, and what we're going to do tonight is put you on a little timeline, take you down a stroll of memory lane here. So regardless whether you were a Biden supporter, a Trump supporter, an independent, Republican, Democrat, your own party affiliation, this is the person in charge of our country right now. And there's a lot of people who weren't happy 9 months ago, and there was a lot of people who were ecstatic 9 months ago and throwing parties and singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead." They were happy that Donald Trump had lost the election, and they were just all excited about that. So let's take a look at this now. 9 months later, I would think 9 months is a pretty good amount of time to get your beak wet, and at least
Yes, it is. And AJ, we should make sure we give him a grade too when we're done.
Well, maybe we leave that up to the viewers, but yeah, we could. You're the teacher, Jim, so we could do that for sure. And maybe if President Biden wants to make an appeal, he can appeal to our viewers to reevaluate your grade.
I agree. That's the way to do it.
So let's start go back where all this began. And there was this thing called the Democrat debate for the President of the United States of America, the Democratic primary. And, we're not going to touch on every candidate that was on the stage, although I still to this day believe Tulsi Gabbard was the best candidate on the stage that they wouldn't let on the stage, but that's for another show. So, the two people who are in the White House now, we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And, if you remember, and if you didn't, it's very easy to click and go find it. Kamala Harris probably put the biggest beating on Joe Biden in that debate, probably because I think she was a -4 or something and was getting ready to drop out.
Yep.
And, she threw the blows about, not letting the busing issue and basically spelled out how Joe Biden was a racist. And that was out of his VP's mouth. That's not us saying that. That's, again, in plain sight. And just before we dive into that, though, I was asking Jim in the pre-show, correct me if I'm wrong, what was Joe Biden's background? Was he a Yale grad? Was he, some scholar somewhere? And I'll be the first to say,
who knows? Because he keeps on changing it. The story goes from one to the other. They catch him in this lie, they catch him in that lie. It's so many different things. He's run 3 times for president, at least, and 3 times, and each time he gets caught with something else he screwed up on. And so I would say the answer to your question, Jim, AJ, is who knows?
Yeah, well, we're going to go, and let me just say this, folks. I don't believe that you have to be an Ivy League grad or some Princeton law grad. No, those are brilliant schools. But I think a good leader, you're either good or you're not. And, so we really can't, we really don't have any proof or any kind of hard documents or anything to show. And he's never really, to my knowledge, actually had his feet to the fire. Show us something. Show us a degree or some type of documentation on what your educational background was, or maybe the 3rd grade or something like that.
Yeah.
Because like you touched on earlier, and just so you know, we're going to give you another quick behind-the-scenes look. I questioned, does he even know what he's doing? And Jim feels different. Jim, you felt a little different, that you thought he was a little more, had more wits than we think.
I think it's because he's got 50 years of being this kind of cluster fart. I'm not going to use the other word. Keep the show clean. But he spent 50 years being what he is now, and honestly, I would also throw in there the guys. He hasn't faced the fire, and AJ, I bet you know what I mean when I say face the fire. Been in the bad spot in your life where you have to make some very hard decisions in your life. He's never been there. Closest he ever came was probably with his son or with his late wife, but that's not what I'm talking about. Those are not the events I'm talking about. I'm talking about, your own life or death, making these decisions, being the person on the spot, having to take command. He's never been that. And that's also something that's lacking.
Well, let's establish something.
He's been a senator for 50 years or some crap like that.
Yeah. And one thing we kind of do, it's really organically on this show, is we create a new protocol for our show. Or a new, said Jim, every week something kind of pops up. And let me say something straight here. Let's get this straight, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, okay, elected officials are not our leaders. They are representatives, meaning they work for us.
Right.
You got that? For some reason, they're not our leaders. They're not. They're a representative. They're supposed to be a conduit, a voice of the people that they swore to serve. Okay. For some of these people, they believe they're above us. They believe that, we are their employer. We employ them, just like your boss would employ you. We employ them. And just like any other employer, if an employee don't do their job, they get fired.
They should be. Yeah.
The main moral of the story for here on out, and Jimmy, you good with this? Our stance is elected officials are not our leaders; they are our representatives.
Got the stamp of approval of this guy right here.
I mean, that's the job. And folks, we always welcome your input, but that ultimately, whether it's a small little town, commissioner, council person, a school board member, you're not a leader. You're a representative of the people who elected you. So keep that in mind when we're talking now about Joe Biden here. So we're talking about his education. And, he was, his later in life, and when he started his political, eternity, it was in the state of Delaware. And there's some real beautiful things in the state of Delaware, some great people down there. But I wonder, was he smart enough back then? Did he fall over this? I don't know. That would be something for you to decide on your own. But you picked the smallest state in the country. Maybe there was less competition there for him. I don't know. But you start connecting the dots, which we love to do here. Education, we're going to have to leave that as a question mark because we really don't know, because he's bullshitted the entire time about that. The fungus starts to grow in the tiniest state of Delaware, where, population wise, maybe there wasn't as much competition down there, or, maybe, he had some financial resources to put him on the ballot way back when he started. But, and that the reason I keep touching on that is because he's from Delaware, and he only really mentioned Delaware when he talks about riding the train to and from work. And we all know that little history with the rail trains and all that with him. Has hand and everything.
Don't forget that he's also was born in Scranton, right?
I was getting that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So what I'm just saying is, he doesn't talk much about Delaware when he's trying to fluff himself. It's always about back in Scranton in the old days when I did that. I don't think he did squat shit in Scranton. Maybe his parents busted their hump, to keep a roof over their head and raise the family. And but I don't think he did anything there. And I think for the people of Scranton, you probably should be appalled, that you're there working hard every day to provide for your family, and you got the calluses on your hands to prove it. Some of these are working 2-3 jobs. It's just a red flag because he just keeps going back to Scranton, and then just a little bit of Delaware. So just before this, his escapade gets started, there's a lot of questions on what was his journey to become where he was. And then you think back in the 70s, when they, a lot of this wonderful news network say, when Joe was in his prime, he wasn't too bright back then either.
Nope.
He spoke a little clearer, but some of the things he talked about, I mean, back then they didn't have as much replay, they didn't have on demand, they didn't have the internet and stuff like that, where he could really get boxed up into a corner of all the nonsense that he would spew out of his mouth. But let's be fair here, on Cyclo Mayhem, and give him a little pass just on the front end.
I don't know, Joe. AJ, Joe Biden in 73 when he was elected. He was one of the people who, in his first year, that's when we abandoned the Vietnamese people by not supplying them the money. That's one of the reasons why South Vietnam fell, is because of the Senate pushed that bill to withdraw money to support our allies in South Vietnam. And whatever you feel about Vietnam, it sounds to me awful suspicious, like very much what happened in 1973, Joe's first year in the Senate. Just saying.
Say that to yourself again. 1973. Yeah. He was a senator. U.S. senator. And then think about it. You don't just roll out of bed in the morning and become a U.S. senator. So along there was some political mojo in there. Maybe he ran as the local dog catcher and worked his way up the ladder. I don't know.
I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
That gives you an indication. I'm over 50 now.
Yeah. And if you do the math, folks, you could do it on your fingers, or you could pull out your phone, and subtract, 2021, 1973 from 2021, and figure out how old he was at the time. And again, you have to put a little more in the front end, even if he did, a year here or a year there, maybe being a state representative, and then maybe worked his way up. From that point, could have been, I don't know if he was a state senator. I have better things to do than to, dig that deep in him. I just know, what we're here to talk about tonight is, starting off with that, where did he come from? Who is he? And how did he get here? So, shortly in, and again, it's 9 months. 9 months he's been in. Shortly into it, he does this catastrophic disaster on the border. And it went south really quick, no pun intended. But it went horribly, horribly wrong. I mean, from a secure border, and regardless if you like Trump or you hate Trump, it could have been, Winnie the Pooh who created that policy down there. But the border was secure. It was orderly. People that were credentialed, or people doing the right procedure, were able to pursue their American citizenship in an orderly fashion. And the country was respected. And it was weeks into it. He just took the pen and he was signing things. For all he knew, there was a blank. Well, you know what? I think, Jim, if there was a blank check coming out of his account there, he would have caught that. But all those executive orders he signed. So here we are, and the border's not any better. In fact, it's worse. Plain sight.
Yep.
It's there, and it's even worse. And we're going to go back to the border. So let's follow this timeline. Then, COVID's here, and he botches up, the whole entire COVID relief package. He botched up the vaccines. Remember, his vice president, the one who made it very clear he's a racist, she led the charge on, I wouldn't trust those vaccines. They're not approved and all that. We're just reminding you of that. So
AJ, if I can interrupt you, I have to correct the record. I was wrong. It's 1973 that he was elected to the Senate. It's 1972 that he was elected to the Senate. And according to him, he went to Delaware State, and he also went to Syracuse. Just put that out there.
Attended or graduated?
I'm going to say attended.
Yeah, because I remember him saying he was top of the class. He was,
yes.
He didn't say valedictorian, but he was basically, maybe he was the head eraser clapper for the school. He was the guy who mastered the art of clapping erasers. University
of Delaware for his undergrad, Syracuse University for his law degree. Yeah. And then he graduated that in 1968 and supposedly graduated in 1968. And then he went on to become senator from the state of Delaware in 1972.
Yeah. And just to chime in here for a second, for those Democrats who are watching the show or viewing the show, and you might be sitting there ready to throw stuff at your screen and all that stuff right now, if you go back and watch the beginning episodes of Follow Through on the Cycle of Mayhem, if you notice, I call it like it is. I don't have no Mitt Romney posters, and I won't. There's if you're a sleazeball and you're, supposed to be a representative of the people, we're going to point it out regardless of what party you are. So this is a pick on.
You got any Bush? You got any Bush posters?
No, I don't. No, frankly, I don't. I have Ronald Reagan, but
yeah, I see the Ronald Reagan in your back there.
If you go back, I just say it like it is, and that's what's important about the show here. Is when you hear straight talk, and we're not sitting here trying to run a campaign for any one individual candidate or anything like that. Just lay out the facts so you could decide who's best leadership for you and frankly for your kids, because the lunacy that these people are doing today is going to affect your kids and your grandkids. That's not just a cliche statement. I mean, anybody with just a little minute common sense knows, which we're going to touch on right now, is the COVID, the vaccines were all botched up. They're telling you don't get them during the campaign trail. And then all of a sudden it's now you're a scumbag, you're a sleazeball, if you don't take the jab. And for clarity here, my stance has always been, you evaluate it, you do your own homework, you speak privately with your doctor. And if you don't have one, you find one and you decide what's best for you and what works for you. And, no politician, elected official that should have any input on what you do with your body. If you choose to get the vaccine and it's right for you, you get it. But now all of a sudden he wants to shame you. And I'm getting ahead of the timeline here, but let's go back to it kind of ran concurrently with each other, where it was, the transition from, we never said that, we never said anything about, get the vaccine. Yeah, get your vaccine. Folks, it's a pattern starting to develop here, and by the end, I think you'll see it. It's whatever the hell is politically beneficial to him and anybody like him that holds office. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about us. They don't. It was always from day one, and the facts are the facts. You can make up the decision. Does this man fall into that category? Whatever is best for my political future, whatever is best that's going to fluff my pockets. Because I never seen anybody in my lifetime contradict it. Look, a lot of them are full of shit.
Right.
These elected officials, we know that. But I've never, that I could recall, maybe there's a few who bullshit that much.
No,
and as fast as he does.
Mark Twain always said that diapers and politicians should be changed often for the same reason.
Yeah. Well, we said in a prior show, the only thing, one of the few things that Americans could agree upon is term limits, and maybe we ought to do a whole show on that. But you come, you serve your country, and then you go out and get a real job. And that's the other thing I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. Sorry, Jim. But
you're welcome.
What did he do for a living? When he was in his younger days, did he ever have a real job? Folks, if he did,
John,
and you know about it, post it.
AJ, he was a lifeguard. You remember with Corn Pop?
Corn Pop, and he liked when the little kids would touch the hair on his legs.
Yes, I mean he was a lifeguard. That's his big claim to fame.
He was a lifeguard technician.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Is that it? So for a lifeguard, he was in his own lane in more ways than one.
Let's put it this way. Right now, I'm looking at Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia.
That's going to fluff him up. So whatever's on there, I want to see how they try to make terrible look good.
There's nothing before him getting his degree. Like there's nothing before it. It says he was born in Scranton, and that's it. Then it jumps to graduated from the University of Delaware and Syracuse University with a law degree. So there's zero information. So it goes from born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and then he goes from there to graduate at University of Delaware, and then went on to get his law degree from Syracuse.
Okay.
So there's nothing in between. Absolutely nothing in between. Something about Newcastle County, Delaware. He grew up in New County, Castle, Delaware. It's just talking about where he grew up. It doesn't talk about anything he achieved. It doesn't talk about any type of accomplishments. It doesn't say anything about him. It just says born, lived, and went off to college. That's it.
I would love to be able to find a classmate of his, somebody who actually stood in the line before him or after him, or 10 people before him and after him when he got his even diploma. Right. And then he got his degree. I'd love for someone like that to surface, to be able to clear the air on this. And look, if he did get his degree, kudos. What was his GPA? I think that's asking too much.
Before I got my job, I don't know about or before I got my degree, AJ, I had 3 jobs, 2 of them at the same time. I'm sorry, 3 of them, all 3 of them at the same time, working like a dog just to get myself through college. So I'm not really sure. I mean, what does this guy have to stand on? Part of previous experience or previous job experience. Yeah, he's just been a lousy politician.
Well, and if you notice, folks, we're trying to be diplomatic here. Where maybe he was. Well, that's
a given. That's a given.
If he was a Dunsky, his whole younger years, and now he's, I can't go there and say the most powerful man in the world. That's just not happening anymore.
To me, Joe Biden is the student in my classroom that is sitting there stealing the answers from his neighbors, telling lies about doing it, and then getting away with it because his parents are protecting him, or because he's slick enough to be able to lie with a straight face, and no one's willing to say he's lying, and there's no teacher who's willing to say you're lying, and face the flame from parents who would be angry. That's who Joe Biden is. That's who he's always been to me. That's who he's always going to be. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. And now, we're still on the topic of when he did the COVID relief package, and people needed it. There's no question. There was some people who lost their jobs and the world was spun upside down and they needed the help. However, with the quick swipe of the pen, because he's never really earned any money, like working an actual real job from what we could see, based on Wikipedia and whatever resources we have available, it's our money. Okay, so helping people out, during the COVID, for sure that wasn't all his idea. However, he was responsible for it. But what happened with it? We were just flinging dollars all over the place. And there was people, yes, again, who really needed it. But then this thing drug on. And then they throw an extra $300 a week on. So you had some people in that category, and you could just make your own decision on this, how you feel about it, that someone that might not have may have had a job or worked for 5 years went out and had, just by coincidence, it was like hitting a slot machine, they worked for about 6 months and all of a sudden lost their job or whatever the deal was, and they were getting paid plus 300, making more than the people grinding, those essential workers who kept busting their ass every day, never missed a job, those nurses on the front lines. I mean, yeah, the doctors get paid more than the nurses, but hey, look, they stayed there on the front lines. Your supermarket workers, your sanitation workers, your custodial workers, all those people stayed on the front line. And you know what? They didn't get a goddamn dime extra. And they're still working. And he knew about that. His administration knew about that. And they did nothing. And what did they keep doing? They just kept shelling out money, shelling out money, shelling out money. And then where do we find ourselves today with this? There was businesses, there was small business relief. And look what this COVID did at no fault of Joe Biden. The COVID, it crippled and ruined a lot of small businesses. It destroyed them. And, so there was businesses that did need relief and they needed help. So there was some programs in place to help these small businesses to stay afloat, to meet their payroll and stuff like that. However, the failure of his policy, there was also a lot of businesses, some were seasonal businesses that didn't start opening until Memorial Day weekend. A lot of those Shore Point jobs and places like that, the tourist places. And people were applying for this relief and getting money in March. How could you say your books are off when you didn't even open for business yet? And billions with a B. Soon we might have this conversation next year, because we're now all of a sudden billions is just a bag of shells. Right. Now we're into the trillions. But all this money went out there, and then in the end, when the smoke cleared, there is small business owners, there was nothing left in the bank to give them because they don't have the money.
I got a question,
throw out for lawyers and stuff to get them in front of the line or to grease a politician.
Maybe I missed this, but what is the deal with because it's not really his policies as much as his people in his party's policies of what they did to the laws and rules for those businesses to be open during the pandemic. Wasn't there something in that he's somebody who's held responsible for?
Well, look, if you're the president, you're the face of your party. That's it. There was a lot of Republicans,
and the candidate too. It's not
they
just
were
presidents.
Biden. Yeah, there was a lot of Republican Biden clones that were mortified, when President Trump became president, because businesses, they knew it. They knew that they weren't going to, just be able to mosey on down the road, spend 3-4 hours a week at the office and collect their check and shake hands and kiss babies and do nothing, where they didn't like that. And they couldn't do anything about it because he ultimately became the face of the party. Now, fast forward time to today, Joe Biden is the face. Folks, make no mistake about it. He is the head face, poster child of the Democratic Party. And then underneath him, you can have the squad, and you have Chucky, and you have Nancy. They're the faces, but he is the number one face of the Democratic Party. So everything that's happening right now, if you're a lower level Democrat, running for state rep or all that, he's your face. He's the one laying the seed, when you got to knock on doors and stuff like that. And folks, these people knock on your doors, you better ask questions. Because, and don't get me wrong, there's just as many goofy conservatives around there, but like we said in the last show, at least with the conservatives, the people of the Conservative Party, the voters of the Conservative Party started cleaning house and getting rid of their swamp and their career politicians who weren't doing right for the people. And they still have a lot more housekeeping to do, but the Democrats have showed absolutely nothing. What they do is just nothing to see here. Wait, nothing to see here. You know, and they just deny, lie, deny. They're in denial.
More of the swamp, bringing more of the swamp, bringing more of the people.
And more for the top. You know, when they talk about we're going to tax the top 1%, I'm going to go off script here a little bit. Not that we're scripted, but off my notes. I want you to think about something for a second. Boy, that line really sounds good to the blue-collar person out there working 2 or 3 jobs, you know, busting their hump to keep the lights on in the house. We're going to tax we're going to tax the rich. They're going to pay their fair share. Christ, you hear that in your sleep. But I got to ask you, like we do every week, tap into your common sense. Who feeds Joe Biden? Who feeds Kamala Harris? Who feeds Mitt Romney? Who feeds their campaign, these PACs? The rich. You know that. Come on. And if you don't, look it up for yourself. But that's their bread and butter. There's very few campaigns that are actually going to make a lot of leeway with the $5 and $10. So let's get back to that. Let's tax the rich. You had a goof from the Democrat Party walking around, you know, with a dress on it, a $30,000 plate. We're not going to waste too much time on it. You know, tax the rich. That's a great line. But do you believe for 1 minute, that they're actually going to bite the hand that feeds them? I ask you, say that to yourself. Do you really think?
Common sense, man.
Common sense. Cycle of mayhem in plain sight. Right there. Your common sense has to say, no. It's like you going in tomorrow, walking up to your boss and smack him or her in the mouth. You're not going to be working very much longer, probably in the clink. But the point is, what are they doing? You know, that's what's hitting the headlines on the social media, who they have in their pocket, this ridiculous, news or propaganda machine channels that they have on TV. So, you know, somewhere along the line, they're making it up. And I could tell you, I do know 100% certain that these upper class people, 400,000, you start to get an awful lot of tax credits. When you start getting into the 7 digits, there's so many little tax credits and stuff like that. So it's not as simple as this campaign slogan, tax the rich, make them, pay their fair share, because that's a load of bullshit. They're not doing that because they're never going to, if those people aren't rich, they're not sitting in office. That's how it works. And it shouldn't, but that's how it works. And so what are they doing? And then you go to this COVID tax relief and you look at these big corporate companies. Look at some of these companies that never close their doors, these big box chains, these big ones. The little person can't open their mom and pop shop, but yet the big stores were uninterrupted. And I'm going to tell you something that it's a true story. It really happened. And you tell me if this makes any goddamn sense to you. Is a big known box store was able to stay open because they served food. But there was no wall in the store that said you can only, and believe me, they could afford to build a wall in the store, that you can only go into the food section, essentials. You can't go over there and buy shoes. You can't buy clothes. No, you went through the door and you could buy anything you want. And there's a local, there's a mom and pop, several of them throughout the country that are like farmers market types of places where it's one building and inside there's individual vendors. And it took them forever to get their doors open. It was forever. And when they finally got their doors open, I had a friend of mine, he was in dire need for a pair of work boots. Yeah, he works. And something some of these people know nothing about, never had a pair of work boots on him a day in their life. And his feet were falling out the side of his work boots. And if those of you who work for a living, and if you're in construction or you're in that type of work, or you're on your feet all day, which most blue collar people are, you got to have a good pair of shoes. So he couldn't go to the box store and buy the $39 pair of work boots. It just wasn't going to last. And he was in search of a good pair of boots. And good pair of boots they start at what, Jim? $100, $150, could be up as high as $300 a pair. So when you're spending that kind of money for a shoe, a pair of boots, buy them online. If you remember, the law was in place. If you bought any apparel, any shoes, you weren't allowed to return it because it could be contaminated with COVID. And the moral of the whole story was he was in one of these places and he went to the shoe store that was in there and it was closed. And right on either side of it was food places. And he was inquiring, well, why is everything open? And then he starts looking around. Anything that wasn't food, pretty much everything that wasn't food was open. But anybody that sold apparel, work boots, anything like that were not allowed to be open. So let me just sum that up. The big box stores never closed. And if they did, it might have been for a brief period of time. I don't know, Jim. Did they close? I don't think they did. But nope. You could go in there. And it was like, was there something going on to force the people that, you only had these certain little outlets that you could buy your stuff from? What the hell was the difference if the big box store was allowed to stay open, but the small place, the farmer's market, you can always sell food, but not the shoes. So, I mean, that all bundles in that, and this was under his watch. Something was just going wrong. But those big box stores then got millions of dollars out of that COVID relief. I think somewhere, Jim, wasn't one close to almost $1 billion they got, these big box stores? And when they got caught, but here's the thing. When they got caught, oh, okay, here, it was a mistake. We'll give the money back. How do you shell out $1 million in relief money and say, oh, it was just a mistake and give it back? If Bob the landscaper down the street, got an extra $50, they'd be getting a letter in the mail, something's going on.
And you'd have to pay interest on it. But the point, folks, this, you've seen this. You're probably watching the show now and saying, son of a bitch. That's right, that did happen. Because with all the stuff going on, that's what they want you to do. Forget about these things. But these things really happen. And, on his list of achievements or lack thereof that we're going through right now, we're still at the COVID section. How did he handle it? What has he done for it? And they were just spewing that money. And there was a lot of pressure because they tapped the veins of the real struggling Americans, the small business people, the people who lost their job. There was an urgency, a sense of time where we needed to get some money in the pipeline to help those people, but they weren't going to do it unless there was so much fat in there and so many zeros on that money could be flinging and flying all over the place where people who weren't entitled to it or their good old boys club, were able to get that money. And yes, that did happen because there was people applying for unemployment and they couldn't get through. The websites in the different states were bogging down and they're saying, oh, the infrastructure is bad. These were people who had zero in the bank and the landlord was chasing them and they had nothing in the refrigerator. And then what do they have to do? To get somewhere, they had to go and kiss the ring of a local politician to get themselves up on the list. That's not how it works. Who the hell are these people that should have to happen? And he's the king of it, and he's the face of it. If you Google, you take all the swamp, and there's a lot of bad ones, he has worked his way to the top of that based on his 9 months of work. And then what else did that do? It made people lazy. Now, here we are, I don't know in all states, but in a lot of states, the $300 is gone. You were supposed to lose your unemployment in the beginning of September, I think it was. And now everywhere you look, in majority of the states, I was talking to relatives in various states and the same problem's happening. Help wanted, help one. Now the businesses can't get people work. What are the people doing? Did this create zombies? Did this create something that, you can't, people can't get up, they're out of shape and they're lazy now and don't want to work? Like, what's going on here? The shelves are becoming empty, and this is no conspiracy show here, folks, to make you quick run out and go buy 20 cases of toilet paper. But no, it's legit. It's,
they can't get truck drivers, they can't get frontline workers, they can't get anybody. What's going on?
Just to make your put liberal proof to what your statement is. Good Morning America had on one of the food magnets out there, and they were saying that you should really shop for Thanksgiving early because the expectation is there's not going to be enough food product on the shelves. Turkeys, stuffing, the whole list. You go down, whatever the traditional seasonal items are for Thanksgiving and of course Christmas. expect there to be a delay. So shop early was the guy's point. And this is a guy, one of the leaders in the industry. Shop early, get it done, because the supermarkets are going to try to keep up with demand, but with the lack of transportation, with the lack of people working in the factory or wherever it may be, getting the food, getting the chopping up the meat, whatever it may be, the lack of qualified workers there, combined with the lack of truckers, has created a real potential for Thanksgiving to be not a big Thanksgiving. And so buy your stuff early, put it in the fridge, hold on to a freezer for a few months. Just be prepared is really the answer.
Well, and like I said, they took all this money and they put it out there. And yes, people needed help, but it failed. It failed. And overall, if you had to grade just that category, it was a big fat F. Yes, people did get help, but I would argue that out of the $1 trillion, how much of the percentage of that $1 trillion was actually spent going to the people who really, really needed it? And God only knows where else, because you have Nancy, who was, with the off the rails, grinding them teeth the way she does when she talks. I don't know what's going on there, but she turns around and she was trying to sneak her little thing in there. And then remember going back to that primary, there was this guy Bernie. They needed him out of the way, so they. You could bet there was some kind of handshakes going on behind the scenes, like, you better make sure they get the free everything. And man, are they carrying out that. Because then it comes to, inflation's in there too. It was a matter of months, not even months. And the gas prices shot up. And then gradually, what was it? Building supplies shot up. Food shot up. And this, folks. You're the one that you have to eat. There was an old saying my grandfather said, you got to eat, shit, and sleep. That's the things of life that you just can't, get around. So when you go to the store to buy your everyday goods, you got to have that. And you're seeing everything is going up and up. Yeah, people, here's $1,600 for you. Here's another $1,200 for you. And here's this for this. And anybody with a little bit of common sense, and anybody that maybe worked 2 or 3 jobs, and hopefully that made up for the masses in our country, because if it didn't, we're really screwed, knew that it's always a catch. And guess what? You saw the catch. Think about just the gasoline alone doubled. Doubled. It's like, okay, a loaf of bread was $1, now it's $2. Your mortgage was $1,000, now it's $2,000.
Exactly.
Your mortgage is a fixed rate, but I think I was using it as a point. So that money was spent well before. So let's just follow this. He comes in, we don't know where he's from, we don't know what he does. And he becomes a politician back in 1972. All right. The minute he's in, a couple of weeks later, he makes a mockery of the border, and it's worse now than it was after he made it worse a month or two into his And then the COVID relief comes around. That was a big failure and a flop. Where we can't get people to work now. There's still people that just don't know what the hell's going on. All right. Then we have the inflation that went up. That was kind of in between all that. It was kind of sneaking in there on you. And then we had the Afghanistan mess that just went on. And we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. But like Jim said, we still have Americans over there. And, the last show we touched on it. Was this a trophy moment? Was he trying to shoot for 9/11 because he has no background or pedigree or anything to have claim to fame for? Maybe, just maybe, he could have had one out of all those years of being a bullshitter. He could have had something where he hoisted the trophy and said, see, I'm the one who got our troops out of Afghanistan. None of these other presidents did it. And when it went south, it cost lives, it cost everything. And that's still a mess. Remember, everything is still. It hasn't been resolved. And we're getting to something. So just pay attention for a second. So we got the Afghanistan is a disaster. So what I'm asking, just like the title of our show tonight, 9 months of Biden mayhem, is there anything, and don't lie, because I want to know, anything that this guy did right and his administration or anybody with that ideology, what have they done right? Because can we sit here? Is the border fixed? Jim, yes or no?
Nope, not fixed.
All right, so 0. He gets a 0 for that grade. COVID relief. Could we give him a 30% on that?
If you want to be generous. We'll give him 30%.
I'm saying, to be fair, because we are fair here, that, you know, there was people who did need that, and they did, remember, out of the trillion, maybe 30% of that actually. So he gets 3 points.
He also gave
for
a
that.
lot to his cronies, so it's okay.
Well, that's the other 70%,
Right.
you know, out of it. So that's where I'm going with that. Okay, inflation.
Okay.
Did he lower inflation? So he gets a 0.
He gets a 0.
And Afghanistan, it should be a -13 for those damn
minus.
soldiers who lost their lives for this political stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Political stunt going wrong. But we'll just give him a big fat 0 for that too.
Generous again.
And so 10 being an A, and, you know, 50 or 5 being at the 50% mark, which would be an E. Anything below 5, he comes in at a 3, which is interesting. And we didn't rehearse this, so you know. Comes in at a 3, and his ratings are right in the 30%. Nah, neat, Jim, how that kind of just came to...
That's the technical term for the toilet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's tanking. It's like the roller coaster.
Yeah, it's not done
Zing!
yet. It's not done yet.
And unfortunately, though, you know, there's some conservatives out there that are really, you know, salivating over this, which understandably so. But you know what? You know when he's going down like this, we're in that we're in that roller coaster car with him. The country, us, the people, we're crashing, and we're crashing with him because it's sucking us dry. We talked in prior episodes about, you know, China and other things eating our country from the inside out. And, you know, we touched on the different types of warfare and stuff. You know, there's a financial warfare that's going on right now. And this Biden administration is like the nuclear bomb, but, you know, lighting the fuse in our own country of a financial warfare. You know, suck it out. And then let's look at what the free college, free this, free that. After everything that happens, what the hell do you think is going to happen if they want to start doing this, free that, free that? Is there things that could use improvement? Absolutely. There is some real things that should have been fixed many, many years ago in the United States of America. Let's talk about family medical leave, you know, and stuff like that. You know, a woman has a baby, or even a husband, or if you're a couple and you adopt, maybe there should be something in there that for a reasonable amount of time, you could spend a couple weeks at home to get back on your feet, get things lined up for daycare, whatever it is that you might need, with pay, and not have to worry about losing weeks' pay or 2 weeks' pay or even a month's pay. So there is something there. But all these other things about, you know, who's the one who created these student debt? You know, it goes back to if an 18-year-old kid walked into the bank, a young entrepreneur, his whole life or her whole life, they've been paying attention in school, and they had a vision. You know what? I'm gonna make something. And they walk in and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Banker, I want to borrow $10,000." And the banker says, "You know, for what?" "Well, I want to start this small business, and here's kind of what I want to do." And the banker's going to laugh him out of the bank. You know it, and I know it, and common sense will tell you that's what's going to happen. They're going to get laughed out of the bank. However, that 17-year-old who wants to go to a college, and just full disclosure here, I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm talking about the way this works. They can get $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in student loans. Like that. Just like that. And maybe even more, up to $50,000. So here they took a younger generation. They're not even a legal adult yet, and they're putting them into debt. Because all those of you who know who your kids have bad credit scores because of unpaid student debt, and you're trying to help them out, or that debt, there's never going to be the means to pay for it.
Debt bondage.
You know, it was like they were setting kids up. It was the subprime mortgage of '08 all over again. The cycle of mayhem. Come up with a new scheme. They in '08, for those of you who don't remember, they had subprime mortgages that were going out. They were flexible rates, and people had this vision of moving into this big, beautiful home, and it was way outside their means. And they held that home for a couple years, and when the rates went through the roof, their mortgage went from $900 a month to $3,000 a month, and that's created a disaster, ruined their credit, ruined their lives. They lost their homes, they lost everything. So to show you how evil these sumbitches are, they're actually going after kids and putting them into debt before they even get out there in the real world. But again, if that kid wanted to take a loan out for a small business without any parental co-signing or anything like that. And Jim, you're the educator. Am I wrong here? Correct me if I'm wrong. They couldn't get the loan for a small business or something like that at that age.
Lots of collateral.
Or establish credit, but they'll just shell out hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands to get your education. Am I wrong or am I right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. I just want to point out we're at 50 minutes. I don't know where you want to aim at next.
Well, I mean, it's just, folks, that was the point of this, is to evaluate 9 months in office. And it goes back to another show where I said that, you know, people are saying there's nothing to look forward to. I have this sick feeling about it. This was a month ago, 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
You go back and you can watch the show that we did tonight live over again and go over these things. You better make sure you have a bucket next to you. And we're not here to get you sick or make it, but this is a goddamn mess.
Mm-hmm.
And usually on the show, I try to find the good in all what's going on. Always put a little bit of good in there. And again, if we're missing something here, tell us something good he did. And don't sugarcoat it. Good for the masses, not good for his donors or the people who, his handlers or whoever, whatever else is going on there. Again, we keep saying that's a whole other show, is who's actually in charge.
To your point, I heard just today that his ratings, approval ratings, he was at 6% approval rating from Democrats. He had just had a huge dump in the independents. I think it was like 11 or 12 points that the confidence in him had gone down. But he still had 90% of Democrats thinking and saying that he's doing a good job.
Yeah,
Just
well, I mean, the Iowa ratings for him are 31%. What that means is if you're campaigning right now to try and win something in Iowa, you're better off not spending 10 cents because you don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, when that happens, get ready, Iowa, because the propaganda machine's going to go in full speed. You know, they're going to start bringing all their assets, the social media crew, you know, censorship, not letting you see the information, the whatever you call the propaganda machine on the cable TV channels. You know, that's all going to go into full effect, but it is what it is. Those things we outline, you've seen them for your own eyes. If you disagree with something, that's your right as an American to do that. But you know, for the rest of you, like we always say, there's an election coming up, you know, in a month, a little over a month. And, you know, with the mail-in ballot system, they're going to be coming out in probably a week now. You know, you don't have to, you know, if you are a Democrat and you know, you're being realistic and realize that something's gone wrong here, this isn't good. And for any patriotic American, because there's a lot of them, you know, you have to look and really, before you color in the little box and take your SAT when you vote, you really need to make sure you know who you're voting for. And you need to start doing, even if it's at a local level, because they're crushing you at the federal level with these insane policies that are going on. You know, we're going to run out of time with talking about, you know, all these immigrants that are coming over. And maybe that should be next week's show, is we can let Afghanistan immigrants in. We can let Spanish immigrants in, but we're going to ship the Haitians back. But they didn't want you to know that's for another show. But either way, all these people are coming in, and that's on our dime too, along with the COVID and everything else that they're bringing into our country. But it's a mess. It's a disaster. So when you vote locally in the next, and you got to vote, you have to vote. If you don't trust the voting system, just vote anyway, and hopefully it'll be hashed out, because that might be part of the propaganda, make you discouraged. So you said, I'm not going to do it because my vote won't matter. Yeah. Then you're just taking the bait. You're drinking the Kool-Aid. So make sure you vet who you're voting for. Make sure you get out there and vote. And maybe it's time now to start pushing back a little bit through your ballot process, and stop this anarchy and nonsense at your local level. And hopefully you could work your way up. And that's all I have. Sorry to be animated, folks, but there's nothing nice about this. This is not what America's about.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, AJ. That's all there is to it.
I mean, it was making me sick just reading the notes on this before the show even started. Trying to find something positive in it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us tonight, and please like and subscribe. I just want to remind you that the only way that we have a hope of saving our great country and bringing it back from the brink of Biden mayhem is by getting our voices heard, by informing our neighbors. And this isn't just an echo chamber. This is really our target audience is you. Our target audience is your neighbor, that independent, that free thinker, that person who's saying, hey, I don't like, and looking at what's going on and saying, something's wrong here. To quote A.J. Hayes, the commentator of Common Sense, in our last show, he says, if you're looking at the world today, you're saying, what the heck is going on? You know that there's something not right with the way it is. And so now it's your turn. Now we've done our bit. Now it's your turn. You need to start sharing this. You need to get the message out. You need to tell your friends, your neighbors, your cousin, your Aunt May, your Aunt Elda, your Uncle Teddy, Uncle whoever, Uncle Buck. Let them know the message is clear. We fight back starting here. So on that note, I will say to you, A.J. Hayes, the commentator of Common Sense, take care. God bless all of you. Any last message?
Remember, always, no matter, I mean, this was a frustrating show to do, but always, be kind. There's going to be some, maybe these people that are, seem a little edgy sometimes. This may be why. What we just outlined. So do your best to be kind,
they know
be friendly.
Something up.
Yeah, and they are frustrated. It's like their boxer. You get your favorite boxer, your favorite baseball team. Their home run hitter tanked, and so try to be kind, be nice, be friendly, but make sure you get out there and you vote smart. God bless.
God bless, and take care.